When my foster father first saw me, I was eating a bowl of sour rice. Hungry flies competed with me for the food, and I didn't even have the strength to swat them away. Later, he took me home. He threw me a 7th birthday party. He said, "Jade, today marks your new life. From now on, this day will be your birthday every year." Everyone smiled at me, everyone except my foster mother, who roared after the party was over, "She's your illegitimate child, isn't she?" I was the second child of my biological parents, with an older sister above me. My mother, pregnant and desperate to have a son, moved from place to place to avoid detection. Because my 10-year-old sister could work, my aunt reluctantly took her in, but 7-year-old me was left at home. It was summer then, and my mother's large belly could no longer be hidden. She and my father stayed in the mountains during the day, sneaking down at night to prepare some food for me. That time, they didn't return for 2 days. Starving, I drank my fill of cold water. When I couldn't bear it anymore, I scooped the sour, leftover rice from the big pot on the stove. I didn't even bother with chopsticks. Handful after handful, I stuffed it into my mouth. Flies swarmed my bowl, but I couldn't spare the effort to shoo them away. Do you know what sour rice tastes like? It's sour, a bit bitter, and when you grab it, it pulls into long, sticky threads, looking almost like vomitus. My foster father saw me like this through the iron bars of the window. He shouted for me to stop and handed me a piece of bread. It tasted bitter and had melted a bit, not much better than the sour rice. Only later did I learn it was imported chocolate, very expensive. One piece could be traded for 2 pounds of mint candies. He taught me to draw on the ground with a stick and waited with me for 2 days until my biological parents finally returned. In their arms was my newborn baby brother, chubby and fair-skinned, unlike me, dirty and skinny. I heard my foster father wanted to take me away, and my mother hesitated all night. The next day, she had my father kill a chicken and, for the first time, gave me both drumsticks. Eat up. The drumsticks weren't cooked tender enough, and I bit into them so hard that my gums bled, but I didn't care. I gnawed on the bones, sucking them dry of every drop of juice. My mother touched my emaciated face, tears streaming down. "Don't blame me. Every family needs to have a son. Your uncle looks like a wealthy man. You'll live better with them than here. Once you're there, you have to behave and be obedient." I clung to her legs, crying and begging, "I'll be even more obedient. Please don't send me away." But my father pried my hands off forcefully, his impatience evident. "If you stay, we'll have to pay a fine." Where would we get the money? The sun was blazing that day, his shadow stretched long, engulfing me entirely. In that massive shadow, I sobbed uncontrollably, trembling all over. My foster father stepped forward, covering my ears tightly, frowning as he said, "Don't talk like that in front of the child. She hasn't done anything wrong." He lifted me onto his tall motorcycle and fastened the only helmet onto my head. The helmet was so big, it felt like a wobbling mountain, or like a massive embrace. The motorcycle sputtered to life, leaving behind a cloud of black smoke. My mother chased after us, stuffing half a bag of mint candies into my hands. "Take them all. They're all for you." Those candies were usually locked away, only given as rewards if I behaved exceptionally well. Don't blame me, I had no other choice. My foster father revved the engine, and the rushing wind carried away my mother's words of regret and pleading. I stuffed a handful of mint candies into my mouth. They were so cold, so bitter, my small self couldn't understand. How could one candy taste so sweet, but a handful be so bitter? My foster father brought me home and threw me a birthday party. He held my hand and said, "Today marks your new life. From now on, this day will be your birthday every year." All the family relatives came, except for my foster mother, who wore a cold expression. Everyone else spoke to me in soft, kind tones. I wore a princess dress. Holding a plastic knife, a 2-tiered birthday cake sat before me as I stiffly posed for the black camera, forcing an awkward smile. I was anxious and uneasy, feeling like a thief stealing a princess's moment, and when the magic vanished, I would return to my original form. Sure enough, that night, unable to sleep, I overheard my foster mother's angry accusations. "You used to flirt with those women, and I let it go, but now you're even bringing a child home. How could you treat me like this? Adopted daughter, my foot, she's your illegitimate child, isn't she? And now you expect me to be her mother. You've gone too far." Under the dim moonlight, I clutched the doorframe tightly. Looking up, I saw the door to the room across from me slightly ajar. Through the crack, Jeremy's hateful gaze was fixed on me like a nail. I quietly closed the door, too frightened to go to the bathroom. As a result, I wet the bed. When I woke up, despair washed over me. My adoptive mother already disliked me, and on my very first day, I had soiled the fragrant and soft sheets. She would undoubtedly wish to kick me out immediately. At 5 a.m., I crept out of bed, clutching the stained sheets, and headed to the bathroom. I soaked the sheets in a big bucket of water and stepped in barefoot to stomp on them. After a short while, a cold voice came from behind me. "What are you doing?" Startled, I froze, lost my balance, and fell to the ground. The bucket tipped over, drenching me with water. My adoptive mother extended her hand toward me. Instinctively, I covered my head and trembled. "Please don't hit me, Dad. I won't wet the bed again, I promise." After a long pause, a cool hand pulled me off the ground. "That bucket is for washing mops." Huh, but it was cleaner than the buckets we used for fetching water back in the countryside. "You can use the washing machine for sheets and clothes." She showed me how to operate the twin-tub washing machine step by step. "From now on, all the laundry is your responsibility." Compared to scrubbing clothes in a river, this task was much easier, but I still managed to mess up. I washed dark clothes with light ones, and her white dress came out looking dingy. She was furious. "Do you know how much this dress cost? I saved up for 2 months to buy it and only wore it once. And you couldn't even handle such a simple chore." My adoptive father stepped in to mediate. "It wasn't intentional, Jade. We can always buy a new one." That only made her angrier. Easier said than done. Do you know how expensive it was? But he wasn't just saying it. That very evening, he brought home an identical dress. He also called me outside and handed me a lollipop as big as my fist, which he had hidden in the hallway. "This is the biggest candy in the store. Eat it, okay? Your aunt may seem stern, but she's a paper tiger with a kind heart. Don't be afraid of her." But my adoptive mother didn't seem like a paper tiger at all. She roared like a lion. "This lollipop costs $8. Do you know how much meat that can buy? Brandon, what's wrong with your brain? And the dress, I could have just used bleach to clean it. Are you stupid?" They often argued over things like this back then. I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now. My adoptive father was an artist, kind-hearted and deeply romantic by nature. Even if he only had $20 in his pocket, he would spend it all on a beautiful but impractical bouquet of roses for her. If inspiration struck, he would hop on his motorcycle and leave for a journey. He was the dashing, wandering artist, with many kindred spirits in the arts. Meanwhile, all the mundane burdens of life fell on my adoptive mother. The clash between realism and romanticism. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. He wasn't a great husband, but he was far from a bad one, and so, she loved and resented him, always irritable. Naturally, her coldness extended to me as well. That giant lollipop, I gave it to Jeremy. He took it and smashed it on the ground, glaring at me. "I don't want your candy." My adoptive father couldn't stay in one place for long. After sorting out my school enrollment, he left one gray evening on his motorcycle, leaving behind a letter. Furious, my adoptive mother tore the letter to shreds, grabbed my arm, and dragged me to the door. She pushed me out forcefully. "Get out." He left. "And you can leave too, and he expects me to take good care of you." Dream on. September nights carried a slight chill. The hallway light was broken. Hugging myself, I crouched by the window, staring at the moon dimly obscured by clouds. This was my world. Even with a moon, it was just a faint, blurry glimmer. I don't know how long I sat there. I was nearly asleep when the door creaked open. My adoptive mother stood over me, her cold, disdainful expression softening into reluctance. "Come in." On the table was a steaming bowl of egg noodles, with my special chopsticks resting on top. She had already slammed the master bedroom door shut. My stomach growled as I cautiously ate every bite of that noodle soup. My adoptive father called twice a week to check in on me, asking if everything was okay and sharing his travel experiences. He would tell me about a flower with unusual colors, a particularly clever dog, or the most brilliant sunrise he had ever seen. He would also patiently listen to my mundane stories. At the end of every call, he'd say, "Jade, when I return from this journey, I'll bring you a special surprise." Afterward, my adoptive mother always took the phone, her tone curt. "You never called this often before she came." "What?" Is she more important than me and your son combined? Her coldness toward me never thawed. My brother Jeremy was hostile too. We attended the same school. We walked to school together every day, but I could only follow him from a distance. His classmates would tease him, "Jeremy, is this your new sister?" He would always say with a frown, "She's not my sister, she's just someone my dad picked up." Kids are keen on picking up on others' cues. My brother didn't like me, and as the new kid from the countryside, I became an easy target for isolation. During one-on-one sports matches organized by the PE teacher, I was always the last one left without a partner. It hurt, but I could endure it. Months passed, and winter arrived. One morning, I noticed that my foster mother didn't look well. I hesitantly asked if she was okay, and she glared at me, snapping, "Are you hoping something bad happens to me?" I didn't dare ask further. On my way to school, I realized I had forgotten yesterday's homework and had to turn back to retrieve it. When I entered the house, I found my foster mother collapsed in the living room, unresponsive no matter how hard I tried to wake her. My mind buzzed with panic, and it felt as though a cold wind was flooding into my chest. Stumbling out the door, I banged on the neighbor's door. Uncle Leo and his wife hurriedly drove my foster mother to the hospital in their pickup truck. I insisted on going along. Fear gripped me like countless tendrils, wrapping tightly around me. I whimpered quietly, tears streaming uncontrollably down my face, falling in droplets onto her pale cheeks. I don't know how long I cried until I heard her familiar cold voice. "What's with the wailing? I'm not dead yet." She had woken up, my lips trembled, and then I burst into loud sobs. She frowned. "You're too noisy," Leo's wife gently interjected. She was so scared. "Don't frighten the child anymore." When Jeremy arrived at the hospital after school, his eyes were red as he pointed at me, shouting, "This is all your fault. Mom was fine before you came along, and now she's sick." Fortunately, it was just iron deficiency anemia. After a transfusion, some medication, and dietary advice, the doctor discharged her. She needed bed rest, and our aunt brought over meals for the next few days. But after 3 days, her face was still pale. I became desperate. Sneaking into the kitchen, I used a fruit knife to cut my hand, letting my bright red blood drip into the soup Auntie had delivered. I don't know how much I bled, but I started feeling dizzy. Suddenly, Jeremy shouted from behind me, "What are you doing? Dripping blood into the soup. Your blood is toxic. Are you trying to poison my mom?" He shoved me hard, and the back of my head hit the door handle. The sharp pain left my mind blank. The commotion startled my foster mother. She wrapped my finger in a tissue and coldly demanded, "What on earth are you doing?" Summoning my courage, I looked up at her and stammered, "Auntie said you got sick because you didn't have enough blood." "I have lots, I can give you some." Tears spilled from my eyes as I choked out, "If you drink my blood, will you get better faster?" Her lips trembled, and she didn't speak for a long time. Through tear-blurred eyes, I glanced at Jeremy. "Brother, please don't hate me. I promise I'll only take a tiny bit of your love." I made a tiny gap between my thumb and forefinger, then kept shrinking it until there was barely any space. Grinning at him through my tears, I added, "Just this little bit, okay?" Never having been loved, I could survive in ignorance, but once I'd tasted it, I couldn't let it go. Jeremy clenched his fists, his face turning red as he yelled, "You idiot. Drinking blood doesn't help anemia." After shouting at me, he stormed out of the kitchen, slamming his bedroom door upstairs. My foster mother helped me up and commanded, "Sit on the couch, I'll get the first aid kit." She went upstairs to the master bedroom. Moments later, the front door echoed with heavy knocks. When I opened the door, the sight of the two people standing there felt like a bucket of ice water dumped over me, freezing my tears in their tracks. It was my biological parents. Unlike my stunned silence, they were visibly emotional. They forced their way inside, gripping my hands tightly. "Hope, we finally found you." My biological parents had named me Hope, not because I was their hope, but because they pinned their hope of having a son onto me. My biological mother's eyes were red as she caressed my face and clothes. "Look at you, your face is so pale. Have you been crying? Have they been treating you badly? Mom thought we'd never find you again." I kept staring at them, my eyes darting from one to the other. How odd. My heart was pounding, not with joy from this reunion but with dread. My biological father took one last drag of his cigarette, then carelessly flicked the butt into the hallway before grabbing my arm. "Enough chatter, come on, we're taking you home." My mother wiped her tears and smiled brightly. They're building a highway near our home. Each person gets a $20,000 payout. If you come back with us, our family will get an extra $20,000. With that money, we'll never be apart again. They tugged and pulled me toward the door. Desperately, I gripped the doorframe, my blood-soaked tissue falling to the ground, leaving a crimson trail like a serpent slithering down the wood. I was no match for 4 hands. My heart sank into icy despair. Perhaps this was the moment when the magic disappeared, when the pumpkin carriage, glass slippers, glamorous gown, and warm home revealed themselves to be just a fleeting dream. As I was about to be dragged away, footsteps descended from the stairs behind me. My foster mother stood under the warm glow of the hallway light, holding the first aid kit, her expression icy, overwhelmed with fear and grievance. I instinctively called out, "Mom." Her eyes narrowed, and she strode forward, reprimanding, "Are you blind? Can't you see her hand is bleeding?" My biological father brushed it off. "It's just a scratch. What's the big deal?" My biological mother picked up the dirty tissue from the floor and pressed it to my wound. "Let's go, we're going home." They continued to pull me toward the door, but my foster mother's slender but strong hand gripped my wrist tightly. She spoke coldly and resolutely, "You can't just discard her when you don't want her and take her back when you do. She's a person, not some stray cat or dog. And let's not forget, you took money when you gave her up." I froze, staring blankly at my biological mother. Her gaze shifted evasively, avoiding mine. My biological father's face darkened. "So what? $2,000, right? Once we get the $20,000 payout, we'll pay you back." Jeremy stormed out of his room and threw his arms around me from behind. "Jade is my sister now. None of you are taking her away." Tears streamed down my face as I turned to him, my emotions overflowing. He glared at me, yelling, "Why are you crying, idiot? Fight back." The argument escalated, drawing in neighbors who came to help my foster mother protect me. Amid the chaos, her hair became disheveled, and one of her coat buttons popped off. When the noise subsided, she tidied her hair and looked at me with a complex expression. "Do you want to go with them?" My biological mother, catching her breath, smiled confidently. "Of course she does. I gave birth to her. She'll come with me." My biological father shared her smug certainty. Carefully, I reached for my foster mother's hand. "I want to stay here, with you and Jeremy." Jeremy jumped up in excitement, shouting, "Hear that? She wants to stay with us. Now get out of our house." Enraged, my biological father raised his hand to slap me. "I raised you for 6, 7 years, and you forget everything in just a few months, you ungrateful brat. I'll teach you a lesson." Since I was little, he'd always been like this, resorting to violence whenever things didn't go his way. Fear was etched into my very bones. I froze, instinctively raising my hands to shield my head, but at the critical moment, my foster mother yanked me behind her. That slap landed squarely on her face. Her cheeks swelled instantly, and blood seeped from the corner of her mouth. Like a cannonball, Jeremy launched himself at my biological father, slamming into his stomach with all his might. "How dare you hurt my mom? I'll kill you." A fiery anger ignited within me. I sank my teeth into my biological father's arm, refusing to let go. Neighbors, appalled by the violence, intervened to restrain him. My biological father roared, "She's my child. I can hit her if I want to. She's mine to discipline. I have every right to take her back. Who are you to stop me?" My foster mother covered her face and sneered, unafraid. "You took $2,000 and sold your own daughter. Child trafficking is a crime. If you're caught, you'll be sentenced to at least 3 to 5 years. Leo's wife quickly chimed in, "Yes, yes, Jeremy, don't just stand there. Call the police." My biological father looked confused. "Sending my own child away, is that illegal?" Foster mother raised her voice. "Taking money for a child is trafficking. It's definitely illegal." At that time, the villagers had an inherent fear of the police and the station. No one wanted to go to jail. Jeremy had already picked up the landline phone. My foster mother asked sharply, "Let me ask you one last time. Look closely. Jade is your child, isn't she?" My biological mother was intimidated, pulling my father and laughing awkwardly. We're sorry. We made a mistake." My father, though reluctant, feared the police, so he let my mother drag him away. They reached the stairs, but my biological mother ran back. She pulled out a small bundle of mint candies wrapped in newspaper and, with red eyes, said, "Here, take these." I shook my head, refusing. The candy's too bitter. I don't like it. When I grew older, I understood. As a child, I found mint candies delicious because I had endured a lot of bitterness, and any small bit of sweetness seemed like heaven. But in truth, I shouldn't have had to endure that bitterness at all. After the crowd dispersed, my foster mother went to the bathroom to check herself in the mirror. She changed out of the coat with the missing button and carefully combed her hair. Taking some ointment, she gently applied it to her face to reduce the swelling. She was always meticulous, always a well-groomed person, even when going out to buy groceries. Her hair was always neat, but for me, she had let her hair fall messily and had swollen bruises on her face. I felt guilty in my heart and apologized quietly. "I'm sorry, Auntie." Foster mother's face darkened, and she mocked. "When it's something important, you call me Mom, but when it's not, you call me Auntie. Are you playing with me?" I hurriedly explained. No, it's just that I was afraid. I was afraid you didn't." She threw the ointment aside, marched over to me, and said firmly, "Say it." She raised her voice. "Say, Mom." I looked up at her. She was fierce and cold, and hardly ever smiled at me, but over these months, she had never beaten me or let me go hungry. Her bedroom door was never locked. I could always open it. She had never left me alone at home, and whenever she went out, she always took me along with my brother, on the busy streets, no matter how fast or slow I walked. When I turned around, she was always behind me. She was good to me. I was just afraid. I didn't deserve it. Memories surged, and I choked up. With a trembling voice, I called softly, "Mom." Foster mother's eyes were bloodshot, and she slapped the back of my head. "I've told you so many times, don't open the door to strangers. Do you remember now?" The tears fell, each one hitting the ground. I nodded solemnly. "I remember. I'll ask for leave for you later. Pack up your things," she said. My heart skipped a beat. Foster mother shot me a look. "Your real parents already know where you live, so they might come back next time. For that, Mom, you just said, I've already lost a lot." She was decisive. That evening, we moved to my uncle's vacant house. My aunt had already tidied up the house a bit in advance. Snow fell heavily on the winter evening, quietly settling in the silence of dusk. The snowy roads were slippery, and the Santana on the street moved slowly. Everything seemed to soften with the snow. My aunt held my hand and smiled. "Jade, you're getting more beautiful. I've already bought you new clothes for New Year's. I'll give them to you as a New Year's gift. Now that we're living closer, you can visit me often." She finished by scolding my brother. After teasing the two of us, she complained to my foster mother. "Bruce has gone to some art school for further studies. He still wants to be an actor. At his age, none of these men are reliable." Although we had moved, I had to wait until the next semester to transfer schools. After the weekend, I returned to school, and my classmates pointed fingers at me. "So she was sold by her biological parents. She must have been really annoying to be sold, right? My mom wouldn't even sell the puppies from our dog. Her foster father buys her, but he never comes to pick her up from school. He must not like her." I already had no friends, and now it was even worse. Wherever I went, I was like a plague, and the classmates avoided me. Finally, when school ended, I hurriedly grabbed my backpack, desperate to escape. I ran all the way to the school gate when I heard a familiar voice. "Jade." The snow had just cleared, and the setting sun spread like broken gold on the white snow. My foster father was leaning against a motorcycle under a pine tree piled with snow. He was holding a large wind chime made of colorful stones. As the wind blew, the fine snow from the pine tree fell, and the stones clinked together, producing a crisp sound. It was like music from heaven. He shook the wind chime. "Jade, this is the gift I promised you." The school gate was crowded with people. My foster father was so flamboyant that he caught everyone's attention. He smiled brightly and pointed to a large bunch of lollipops hanging from the motorcycle's front. "I'm Jade's father. Are you all her friends? If you are, you can take a candy." The students hesitated, but the bolder ones came over, took a candy, and then asked to see the wind chime. Foster father smiled. "This is a gift for Jade. You can ask her if she wants it." I nodded. Soon, I was surrounded by a group of people, some of whom I didn't even know. They were envious. "This wind chime is so big and beautiful. I wish I had one too. Your dad is so good to you." I don't know how long it lasted, but soon Jeremy also finished school. He came over with a stern face and waved his hand. All Alright, next time. We have to go home now. The crowd dispersed. The lollipops hanging on the motorcycle were already all taken. My adoptive father magically pulled 2 large ones from his pocket and handed them to me and my brother. Good thing I saved a couple. He grinned. Sit tight. We're heading out. My adoptive father sat in the front. I sat in the middle, and my brother sat in the back. The motorcycle roared, kicking up the snow from the trees, which fluttered and fell onto our shoulders. I held on to my adoptive father's waist and asked, Dad, haven't you gone back home yet? The luggage was still hanging on the back of the motorcycle. The cold wind carried my adoptive father's annoyed voice. I went back, but the house was empty. Everything was moved out. I thought I had gone to the wrong place. When we arrived at the new house, my adoptive father complained that my adoptive mother didn't even give him a heads up about the move. My adoptive mother came rushing out of the kitchen with a spatula in her hand. How could I tell you? How could I even contact you? Do you know how my hair got messed up? And I was slapped in the face. Tears welled up in my adoptive mother's eyes as she turned and walked back to the kitchen. What use do I have for a man like you? My adoptive father stood stunned for a moment, looking guilty, ignoring her protests. He shamelessly followed her into the kitchen. And the door was locked behind them. I grew anxious. Brother, do you think Dad and Mom will fight? Jeremy pulled me back with a scoff. Don't worry about them. Dad's got sweet words, and Mom's too dumb to stay mad for long. Jeremy was 4 years older than me. He was at the rebellious age, always acting like he hated everyone and calling people idiots. He casually turned on the TV, while I fidgeted, unable to ignore the burnt smell coming from the kitchen. About half an hour later, the door finally opened. My adoptive mother's face was flushed red, and her eyes were still teary as she hit my adoptive father with the spatula. Hurry up and take a shower, you're covered in dirt. My adoptive father grinned. All right, whatever you say, dear. Jeremy rolled his eyes. Told you not to worry. He's all charm. As my adoptive father passed through the living room, he turned off the TV and gave Jeremy a stern look. Did you finish your homework? Watching TV all day? That year, for New Year's, I wore a new red cotton jacket and new boots, with a red hairpin my adoptive mother bought me. I received a lot of New Year's money. Grandparents, uncles and aunts, and family all gave me $50. To me, it was a fortune. In the past, when I was in the countryside, I never received any New Year's money. The relatives would give the money to my older sister, but she never got to keep it. It was just a formality, and it was quickly handed over to my parents. But now, they gave me and my brother each our share. When I got home, I handed the money to my adoptive mother. She glared at me. What are you giving this to me for? Keep your own money. I'm not helping you manage it. If you lose it, I'll have to pay you back. Jeremy took me to buy a piggy bank that could only be used to put money in but couldn't be opened again. I stored all my New Year's money in it. He was serious. What if you need to buy something? You can't open it then. I have food and drink. I don't need anything else, I replied. Jeremy sneered. Look at you, so stingy. Besides food and drink, you can buy things you like too. He took money out of his pocket, hesitated for a moment, and reluctantly pulled out a $50 bill. This is your New Year's money, go ahead and spend it. Outside, the snow was thick, but inside the house, it was warm and cozy. I looked up at Jeremy, my eyes watering without my control. I quietly asked him, Brother, I don't want the money, can I hug you? Jeremy looked at me suspiciously. I lowered my eyes. It's okay if you don't want to. But the next moment, Jeremy reached out and gently hugged me, his voice full of annoyance. What, do you have a water pipe in your eyes, always crying? Girls are so troublesome. My nose tingled, and I asked, will you always be my brother? Of course, he replied boldly, then awkwardly patted me on the back of the head, his tone softening. Stop crying, I can share all my love with you, half of it, at least. People are greedy. I once thought that even a little bit of love was enough for me to live on. Now, I wish every day would be as beautiful as the dream I had today. That year, my adoptive father stayed at home until the end of March. The apricot blossoms in the park bloomed. He rode a bicycle, and my adoptive mother sat sideways on the back seat, her arms wrapped around his waist. The spring wind lifted her light-colored coat, revealing the hem of her floral skirt. The March sunlight bathed her in warmth, painting her eyes and brows with softness. She was so beautiful. After riding around twice, my adoptive father stopped, Breathing heavily, he smiled. Small phones are so popular now. I'm thinking of getting one too, that way. No matter where I am, you can contact me anytime. My adoptive mother smiled at him and asked, "Are you leaving again? Staying home? Is it going to kill you?" But my adoptive father left. Perhaps in his past life, he was an albatross, a bird that only lands to find a mate and raise young, spending the rest of its life flying in the sky. Wandering was his fate, always on the move. The years passed like this. Jeremy went to high school. He had always done well academically. But during the high school entrance exam, he didn't perform well and didn't get into the best school. My adoptive mother was so upset she cried, while my adoptive father remained calm on the phone. Studying is important, but what's more important is being a good person. High school is just 3 years, don't rush. My adoptive mother's company was struggling, and several rounds of layoffs had already occurred. Every winter and summer, my brother and I were prone to getting sick. My adoptive mother had to take us to the hospital, make sure we took our medicine, and cover us with blankets at night. Sometimes my adoptive mother would call my adoptive father, but the signal was often bad. My adoptive father couldn't always answer. Around that time, internet forums began to grow. My adoptive father, with his good looks and artistic vibe, had become somewhat of a celebrity among people who followed his wandering lifestyle for artistic purposes. Many young girls posted photos with him on the forums. He earned more money, most of which he gave to my adoptive mother, but my adoptive mother smiled less and less. She sometimes lay on the sofa, staring blankly at the TV, staying up late, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning. She used to always take care of herself when going out, but now she didn't even use moisturizer. One ordinary August evening, it was hot, and the scent of watermelon drifted through the window. My adoptive mother gave Jeremy $20 to buy a watermelon from the fruit shop across the street. A moment later, she opened the street-facing window and shouted, "And bring back a bottle of soy sauce." He stopped, smiling and turning around. "I heard you." At that very moment, a Santana car, out of control, rushed toward him and slammed into my brother. At that moment, the world lost all color, and a deafening roar filled my ears. After about 5 seconds of stillness, my mother let out a heart-wrenching scream and dashed outside, her whole body trembling. She was barefoot, completely losing her composure. Jeremy was lying on the ground, covered in blood, and I felt my mind go blank, my heartbeat almost stopping. But I was 12 now. While my mother was in chaos, I had to stay calm. I first called an ambulance, then quickly called my uncle and aunt who lived nearby. The hospital was close, and the ambulance arrived quickly. Jeremy's injuries were serious, and he was rushed into the emergency room. My mother was crying uncontrollably, blaming herself. I shouldn't have yelled. If I hadn't shouted, he would have walked forward. My uncle took out his Nokia phone. "I don't think my brother knows. Let me call him." After the call connected, my uncle handed the phone to my mother. A young woman's voice came through. "Brandon's in the shower. Can I tell him something when he's done?" Clang. The phone slipped from my mother's hand, and she began to laugh softly. Her laughter grew louder and louder. I was scared and went over to hug her. She rested her head on my shoulder, tears pouring out like the rising tide of the sea, quickly soaking my shoulder. At that moment, I understood my mother's fear and helplessness deeply. I had always thought of her as an adult, strong, brave, and capable of anything. But in reality she, too, had a little girl inside her who needed care and dependence. The light in the operating room stayed on. Every second, my mother and I were tormented like being fried in hot oil. I silently prayed, if fate had to take someone, let it be me. The past years had been so happy for me. I had received love I had never known before, and even if I were to die now, it would have been worth it. I don't know how long it took, but a figure staggered into the hallway. It was my father. He rushed over, glanced at the red light of the operating room, and then hugged my mother tightly, his voice trembling. "I'm sorry, Flora. I came back too late. It's all right. Jeremy will be fine. Our child will be fine. Don't be afraid." My mother insisted on pushing him away. Her expression was calm, like the sea before a storm, every word clear and precise. "Brandon, let's get a divorce." "We should have divorced a long time ago," my mother muttered. "Jeremy will make it through. He will be fine. He's going to stay with me." Then, she turned to look at me. As for Jade, my heart tightened like a bow drawn to its limit. Then, I heard her sigh deeply. "If she wants to, she can stay with me. That string in my chest slowly loosened, and my eyes filled with tears. I clenched my fists tightly to stop the tears from falling. Gently, I said, "Mom, if you and Dad divorce, I will still stay with Dad." My mother's expression was complicated. She smiled faintly. "Of course, you were brought here by him, so naturally, you're closer to him." I shook my head frantically, holding her tightly. "No, Mom, I'm still so young. I've tried to be understanding, but I've caused you so much trouble. I don't want you to be so tired. I want you to be lighter, happier. In my heart, you will always be my only mother." I looked up at her tear-filled eyes. "When I grow up and make money, I will take care of you and Jeremy. After you and Dad divorce, can I still be your child? As long as I can see you once a month, no, once every 6 months, that will be enough." My mother's lips trembled, and she turned her head away, wiping her face fiercely with her sleeve. My father, with red eyes, stepped forward. Without a word, he hugged my mother. No matter how much my mother hit or pushed him, he didn't move. They argued for a while. But then my mother suddenly seemed to break down completely and cried out loud. The first light of dawn quietly brightened the sky, and my mother's sobs echoed through the long hallway. It was a release. It was also like a trapped beast crying out for help. Luckily, fate favored us, and the surgery was successful. However, the doctor said the recovery would be long, and if not careful, Jeremy might be left with permanent disabilities. My father explained the woman on the phone. That day, they were all gathered for an outdoor event, but it started pouring rain. Artists, by nature, were a bit crazy. They ran around in the rain, played, and after getting soaked, went to wash in the river. One of the artists' girlfriends took care of their bags and answered the call. My father even showed some photos he took that day. My mother's expression was flat. "This is just the spark. The reason I want a divorce is that we can't go on like this." She and my father slept in separate rooms. Family and friends came to advise against it. They said that with Jeremy in his current condition, it wasn't the right time for a divorce. But Jeremy didn't think so. After coming home from the hospital, during the first dinner, he said at the table, in front of my father, "Mom, don't worry about me. If you want a divorce, I support you. I'll stay with you." That day, my father only ate 2 bites before putting down his chopsticks. When I went downstairs to throw out the trash, I saw him sitting by the flower bed, smoking. The streetlight was dim, but it couldn't smooth the wrinkles on his forehead or the corners of his eyes. He looked at me through the smoke, his eyes seeming to gather the sorrow of autumn. "Jade, haven't I been good to you and Jeremy? Why don't you want me anymore? You've been great, Dad. You always give us so many surprises, making my classmates envy me. No matter how expensive something I want is, you buy it for me, but I can't always call for you. When I'm hungry, when I'm sick, when I don't know how to do my homework, or when I forget to bring an umbrella in the rain, only Mom is always there." In the process of growing up, there are many moments when we need a solid support and reliance. Once we've made it through that difficult moment on our own, no matter how much concern and compensation come after, it's in vain. My mother, she must have had many such moments when she relied on herself to get through. My father's expression was shaken, as if deep in thought. Jeremy's body wasn't fit to go to school, so my mother found several tutors for him, but the high school workload was heavy, and he still struggled to catch up. My mother's company was downsizing again, and this time, she couldn't avoid it. My father comforted her, saying there was no shortage of money at home, and it was a good opportunity for her to rest. But my mother became even more depressed. Every day, the trash bin in the bathroom was full of her hair. After the midterm exams, my mother went to my parent-teacher meeting. When it ended, a torrential rain began to fall outside. Parents and students crowded in the corridor of the school building. The hallway, without a roof, couldn't stop the rain. In just a minute, my hair was drenched. The parents were all chattering. Then someone shouted, "Jade's mom, your hair." At that moment, everyone turned to look. My mother's wig had been blown away by the strong wind, exposing her scalp. Her wet and thin hair couldn't cover the large bald patches on her head. I was in shock and couldn't close my mouth. My mother had always taken great care of her beautiful black hair. When did it become like this? The signs had always been there. I just didn't pay attention. I should have noticed. In the pouring rain, the murmurs of students and parents couldn't be stopped. My mother, with a terrified expression, ran into the rain. I snapped out of my daze and hurried to follow her. The stone pavement was slippery, and she slipped and fell, but she didn't care about the pain. She picked up the damp, muddy wig and frantically tried to put it back on her head. My tears poured out, and I held her wrist, telling her that everything was all right, but she was like someone possessed. At that moment, a huge green umbrella appeared above our heads, amidst the wind and rain. My father tightly held the umbrella with his body and legs, creating a space above us where we were free of rain. He raised an eyebrow at us. I borrowed this from the barbecue place downstairs. Pretty cool, right? The adoptive mother was also stunned. The adoptive father had an even more noticeable reaction. He held the umbrella with one hand and tugged with the other. His wild, ear-length curly hair suddenly whooshed off, revealing a completely bald head. He smiled with his mouth curved, his eyes filled with a loving, tearful shine. Flora, don't worry. I'm not wearing a wig anymore. I'm still handsome even as a bald man. Even if your hair falls out, you're still the most beautiful in my eyes. The adoptive mother was so shocked that she couldn't say a word. The adoptive father waved to the curious classmates and parents watching with a smile. You're laughing at me, but my wife and I are having a couple hairstyle. This is the trend these days. Couple clothes, couple shoes, couple haircuts. The adoptive mother's face turned beet red, and she no longer cared about her wig. She grabbed her husband. Let's go home quickly. Stop embarrassing me. The trend is couple avatars, not couple bald heads, the adoptive father said, holding the giant umbrella in the middle as I stood on one side with my adoptive mother. The heavy rain relentlessly beat against the umbrella surface, but it couldn't break this wall of love. After walking a short distance, I turned around. I saw the adoptive mother and father's wigs being washed away by the gathered rainwater, flowing into the nearby flower beds and into the gutters. Once we got home, I let my adoptive parents go upstairs first while I went to the downstairs convenience store to buy something. After returning home, I snuck into my brother's room, locked the door, and started fiddling around. After the third knock, I opened the door and shouted loudly, "Surprise!" I had borrowed a hair clipper from the downstairs barber shop and, along with Jeremy, shaved both of our heads bald. The adoptive mother was in complete shock, pointing at us, unable to speak for a while. I stepped forward and gently hugged her. Mom, I shaved my head too. Am I still your cute daughter? With tears in her eyes, and a hint of resentment, she said, otherwise. Am I going to throw you away just because you shaved your head? So, even if all your hair falls out, you are still the mom I love the most in the world. To me and Jeremy, you will always be the most beautiful mom. She wiped away her tears and stared at Jeremy. You can shave your head. It doesn't matter since you don't go outside and it'll grow back in a couple of days. Jade is a girl. How could you let her mess around like this? Just then, the adoptive father came over, snapped his fingers, and said, "Wow, Jade, you look so cool. I'm sure you're going to be the coolest girl in school." The adoptive mother shot him a stern look. "Shut up, Jade is a girl. Don't let her learn your bad habits." The adoptive father stepped forward and hugged her. On the contrary, I think she looks great now. Flora, it's you who've taught them so well. You've worked so hard these years. From now on, I'll take the burden. In that moment, the adoptive mother's tears flowed freely. She turned her face to the side, sobbing silently. The adoptive father pulled me closer, and my brother waddled over too. We hugged tightly as a family of four. The fierce wind and rain outside kept going, but I knew the rain that had been pouring in our house for months had stopped. After crying for a while, the adoptive father took the adoptive mother into their room. I stayed in Jeremy's room, doing my homework with the door open. Not long after, I heard strange sounds mixed in with the heavy rain. I strained my ears. It sounds like Mom is crying. I'll go check. Jade grabbed me by the arm. What are you checking for? Just do your homework. But Mom, she's crying. But your dad is there. Focus on telling me why you got this question wrong. Be careful, or you'll suffer on your next exam. You have no right to say anything to me. You got more wrong than I did. Jade, is that how you talk to your brother? I stuck out my tongue at him. Ha ha ha. Come on, jump up and hit me. Jeremy was so angry he could barely stand it. Just you wait, little bald head. When my legs are better, I'll beat you to death. That night, at 3 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom and found the adoptive father still working in the studio, painting. In that stormy, emotionally turbulent night, he created the most highly praised piece of his entire painting career. Short hair, The next morning, when I got up for school, the adoptive mother hadn't woken up yet. The adoptive father secretly slipped me $10. Your mom's tired from yesterday, take this money, go out and buy something to eat, and tell her I made you noodles. The adoptive mother didn't like eating outside food because she thought it was unsanitary, so I usually ate at home. With my bald head, I went to school, and sure enough, I became the most stylish kid in the entire school. The head of the disciplinary department had a talk with me, after hearing my explanation. She was moved to tears. I won't ask you to write a self-reflection, just wear a hat to school from now on. I pressed on, teacher, can you return my extracurricular books? They were bought with the pocket money my mom gave me, sob sob. The head of the disciplinary department quickly stopped crying and glared at me. You really think you can get away with everything, don't you? It looks like your last self-reflection wasn't profound enough. Write another one. The adoptive father took the adoptive mother to see the doctor. The doctor said that the adoptive mother's hair loss was due to excessive mental stress, and she needed to maintain a relaxed and happy mindset. During that period, their relationship improved greatly, and the adoptive mother stopped wearing the wig. If anyone asked, she answered gracefully. Jeremy's health seemed to have passed a critical point, and his recovery speed accelerated. After the beginning of winter, he went for a checkup. The doctor said he could return to school, but still needed to be cautious. The adoptive mother had good writing skills and loved reading books and watching movies. She and the adoptive father had come together because of their shared interests and spiritual connection. The adoptive father suggested she write movie and book reviews on a platform, though the pay wasn't much. The adoptive mother's deep cultural background allowed her to tell captivating stories, earning her a wave of fans and friends. She rediscovered her own value. After Jeremy returned to school, he focused even more on his studies, steadily improving his grades. For over a year, we lived harmoniously. I almost thought we would always be this happy, until that ordinary midday when the bell rang. I, along with my classmates, rushed to the cafeteria like cattle being released from their stalls. We were always so hungry when we were young. The sooner we arrived, the sooner we could get the dishes we liked. Finally, it was my turn. I stretched my neck and sweetly said to the aunt serving the food, "Aunt, I'd like a serving of sweet and sour pork ribs. Can I have a few extra pieces?" The aunt looked up, and when I saw her face, I almost dropped my lunchbox. She was wearing a standard uniform, her back slightly hunched, and her eyes filled with deep wrinkles. She looked much older than in the nightmares I'd seen. But I still recognized her immediately. My biological mother. My biological mother froze too. After a few seconds, she cautiously spoke. "Hope, is that you?" She trembled as she held the serving spoon, tears welling up in her murky eyes. "Hope, you don't recognize me anymore. I'm your mother." I stood frozen, my body cold. The words that had been whispered about me in first grade flooded my ears like a tidal wave. How unpopular must she be for her own parents to sell her? I wouldn't even sell my dog, and yet they sold their own child. My biological mother, trembling with emotion, reached out from the window and grabbed my wrist. "Heaven has eyes. Hope, I've finally found you. I was wrong. I'll protect you from now on. Come home with us," the people behind in line urged. "Are you going to get your food or not?" I suddenly snapped out of it, pulled my wrist away from her hand, and said firmly, "Aunt, please give me a serving of sweet and sour pork ribs." "Thank you." My biological mother's eyes filled with tears as she looked at me, stunned. I raised my voice. "A serving of sweet and sour pork ribs." The cafeteria manager stepped forward and scolded her. "What are you standing there for? The students are waiting." My biological mother quickly wiped her tears. She scooped me a full spoonful of ribs, but when she saw the manager's displeased expression, she dropped half of it back into the container. It was truly laughable. She wouldn't even dare give me a few extra pieces of ribs, but she had the audacity to say she would protect me. I didn't acknowledge her. My biological mother wouldn't give up. After school, she hid behind a pillar in the hallway and grabbed me when I passed by. Crying uncontrollably, she sobbed loudly. "Hope, I had no choice back then. I didn't mean to give you away. I've dreamed about you every night, begging me not to send you away. Now that I've found you, it's fate, fate." Her voice was loud. Classmates whispered among themselves. "Is that the lunch lady, Jade's real mom? Her dad's a painter, and her mom's a movie reviewer. Turns out she's adopted." The biological mother, with a mix of snot and tears, pleaded, "Hope, mommy is kneeling to you. Forgive me. Will you come back home with me? As she spoke, she knelt down. At that time, I was still not even 15 years old. My foster parents had protected me well, so well that I had forgotten the ugliness that exists in human nature, so well that I couldn't handle such a scene. I was both angry and aggrieved, red-faced. I shouted at her, "I won't go back with you. I will never go back with you." The crowd around us grew larger. I felt like a forced performer in a circus. What would they say about me? Would they accuse me of despising my roots? Would they call me heartless, an ungrateful wolf? My foster mother, crawling on her knees, tried to pull my sleeve. In the midst of my confusion, the school dean suddenly rushed out. Without saying a word, he grabbed me and knelt down with me. He bowed to my biological mother. "Sister, I'm kneeling to you. This is the school, and it's after class now. Please don't cause a scene here." I remained kneeling, questioning my biological mother. If my brother and I were both drowning, and you could only save one of us, who would you choose? My biological mother hesitated. "You, why would you both fall into the water?" I raised my voice. "Who would you save?" Her lips trembled. I would save both of you." "That's a lie," I shouted in a mix of anger and sadness. "Back then, in order to have a son, you locked me up at home, in the middle of summer. When you didn't come back, I was so hungry I had to eat spoiled food. You gave my father $2,000 to take me away to avoid paying a fine. You were trafficking children. You broke the law. Aren't you afraid that I'll report you?" My foster mother's eyes flickered as she whispered, "We've consulted with lawyers. There's no evidence at your foster parents' place. You can't sue us." I felt as if my lungs were going to burst. Rage burned inside me, and with red eyes, I ran up and shoved her hard. "Shameless. How can anyone be as shameless as you?" My biological mother fell to the ground in a heap. At this point, the security guards arrived and took her away. The school dean drove me home. As I got out of the car, he called out to me in an unprecedented soft tone, "Jade, you are a good child. The wrongdoers are them, and it's a centuries-old evil habit. It's not your fault." In that moment, I tightened my grip on my backpack straps to prevent myself from crying. Yes, I hadn't done anything wrong. Why did they have to keep breaking my peaceful and happy life? Because of my biological mother's big scene. The cafeteria fired her, but she didn't give up. She stood outside the school gate every day, waiting. When I had PE class, she would shout my name over the wall. My foster father treated this as a major issue, and every day he would pick me up and drop me off at school. Most of my classmates supported me, but of course, there were whispers behind my back. After all, this was a big story at school. Fortunately, summer vacation was around the corner. Soon I would be in the 3rd year of middle school, and my foster mother enrolled me in a tutoring class. One day, she picked me up and found that my foster father was not at home. The drawing board he had been using recently was also missing. His phone kept ringing, but no one picked up. My foster mother threw the roast duck from outside onto the dining table, her face darkening with every passing second. She sneered. "I shouldn't have hoped. A man like him is like a bird without feet. He'll always be flying, only coming down to the ground when he's dead." Could it be? Had my foster father left again? My heart sank. Jeremy's face also showed hidden disappointment. My foster mother went to the kitchen to cook, and shortly after, she brought out 3 bowls of noodles. "Eat," she said. The noodles were undercooked, tough and hard to chew. I was too upset to eat when the door of the living room creaked open. My foster father entered, holding the drawing board, and said, "You didn't wait for me to eat." My foster mother gripped her chopsticks tightly, mocking him. "I thought you were out there wandering again. After all, dog excrement always smells better outside." My foster father threw the drawing board down and, despite her resistance, kissed her face forcefully. She glared at him fiercely. He cleared his throat. "I've got a big surprise for you. Next semester, I'm going to be a professor at the Art Academy of X University." My foster father had gained a lot of recognition over the years, and X University had offered him several times, but he loved freedom too much to be confined to a classroom, so he had rejected them every time. My foster mother was so shocked she looked up at him, speechless for a long while. He pinched her cheek. "From now on, you can act like the professor's wife." Her lips trembled, and her eyes turned red. "Brandon, is this going to restrict you?" My foster father laughed. "Life is about giving and taking. I've wandered enough. From now on, let me become a legend in this world." He gently held my foster mother with one hand, while rubbing my head and Jeremy's unwilling face with the other, smiling, "You are my most loved ones. This isn't a restriction for me, it's a gain." After my foster father started working at X University, Jeremy and I transferred to its affiliated middle school. This was a prestigious school and very hard to get into, for me and my brother, who was about to enter senior high school. This was a stroke of luck. I suddenly realized something. I asked my foster father, "Dad, did you agree to be a professor to help me escape from my biological parents?" He smiled, "Yes, Dad is so great, don't be too touched." I gently clenched my fists. "But why do we have to compromise when it's not our fault?" My foster father patted my head, "Because Dad and Mom love you, and we don't want to risk your future or career over a right or wrong. When you grow up, you'll understand that sometimes making a temporary compromise will give you more room to grow. Don't argue with those who have nothing to lose. They have nothing to fear, so they're not afraid. In any conflict with them, no matter who wins or loses, we will always be the ones who lose." Looking back now, the greatest gift my foster father gave me was teaching me how to listen, express myself, respect others, and also how to endure, be open-minded, and let go. He was a teacher at X University, and I could have gone directly to the high school division, but my foster parents were so wonderful. They were like the bright future, lighting up my life. I wanted to be a star too. Even if I couldn't shine brightly, I would still emit my own light, so they could find me in that shining galaxy, and point at me, telling others, "Look, that's my daughter." That year, my brother was in his final year of high school, and I was in my third year of middle school. In order to take better care of us and prevent my biological mother from finding us, my foster father bought a new house near X University. My foster mother got her driver's license so that she could help pick up and drop us off from school and various tutoring classes. The atmosphere at the Key Middle School was much more intense than at my previous school. Every day was either at school or attending extra classes, or one-on-one lessons at home. I remember it was a spring evening. The setting sun painted the whole sky red, and the magnolia flowers in the neighborhood bloomed, filling the air with their fragrance. The kitchen's exhaust fan hummed. My foster mother seemed to be preparing something delicious. I zoned out. My one-on-one teacher, Pearl, knocked on the table and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "In the countryside. It's about time to plant the early rice." Right, that year, I was 6 years old, very small. Other children my age were usually staying at home to sun the rice or herd chickens. But I had to go into the fields to plant the rice. I stepped into the mud, which engulfed my legs all the way to my thighs. After barely planting a row of rice, when I tried to pull my leg out, 2 leeches stuck to it. They were black, soft, and swollen, clinging tightly to my legs. I screamed in terror. I thought my biological father was going to help me pull them off, but instead, he slapped me across the face. I fell into the rice paddy. The mud forced its way into my eyes and nostrils, suffocating me. Pearl smiled softly, her voice distant, "Yes. I was most afraid of the leeches in the rice fields when I was little. I remember the first time I helped my uncle and aunt in the fields. 2 leeches latched onto me. I screamed, and my aunt hurriedly threw the rice aside to help me pull them off. It was impossible to pull them off, and in the end, my uncle had to use a lighter to burn them off. That time, I didn't die. My eldest sister pulled me out of the mud. My biological father wouldn't let me remove the leeches. Learn some courage. What's there to be afraid of?" I continued to plant the rice, dragging the leeches along with me. I couldn't stop, and I couldn't cry. At that time, the small me actually thought, all children were supposed to be beaten, all fathers in the world were as cruel as that. Sister Pearl gave me a deep look and said, "Actually, I was adopted by my uncle and aunt. They love me very much. That's why I have to work harder, so that one day, when I have the ability, I can love them back." Jade. You must work hard too. Yes. When I grow up, I will also love my adoptive parents well. That's why I must get into a good university, find a good job, and live a successful life. That year was dark and difficult, but fortunately, hard work pays off. Jeremy caught up and barely made it into a top university. I also passed the admission score for the affiliated middle school of X University through my own efforts. On the day we held Jeremy's graduation party, my exam results came out. When my adoptive mother learned of my score, she was so emotional that tears filled her eyes. These two children are so promising. My adoptive father put his arm around her shoulders. Yes, both of them are so considerate. Maybe we should have another child. My adoptive mother's expression immediately changed, and she shot him a fierce look. In your dreams, my adoptive father grinned sheepishly, regretting his words. Jeremy chose a university in another city. He was far away, and it was difficult for my adoptive parents to take care of him, but all their love was showered on me. They enrolled me in tutoring classes, fed me the best food, checked my homework, and periodically asked me about my relationships. I deeply appreciated Jeremy's kindness. When he was around, my adoptive parents always thought I was well behaved, but over the years, I had overheard neighbors gossip about us. She's an adopted daughter, why invest so much money and effort into her? You should save that money for your own children. She'll eventually marry and leave all those extra tutoring classes, but her grades haven't improved much. Her biological parents were like that, so her genes must be bad. It's better not to waste too much money on her. But my adoptive parents remained steadfast, undeterred. I thought to myself, they must be angels sent by God, so kind-hearted. Those were long 3 years. Another 3 years that passed like a flash. The college entrance exam came as scheduled. During the exam, I remembered a dream I had the night before. In my dream, my biological parents had found me again. I had no evidence, so I couldn't sue them for selling children. They dragged me away, wanting to marry me off to a man they had chosen, and take a large bride price to support my brother's wedding. I took a deep breath. After finishing the exam, I quickly turned 18. I must get into a good university, and I won't need guardians anymore. At that point, even the King of Heaven could not separate me from my adoptive parents. On the day the results came out, my adoptive father had his last class and couldn't skip it, so we sat at the computer at 1 p.m., waiting for the results. She refreshed the page almost every minute. Mom, it's not time yet. My adoptive mother glared at me. Can't I just check if the mouse is working, or you can go rest? I'll call you when the results come out. She had a habit of napping in the afternoon. I'm not sleepy today, she kept refreshing, and suddenly, the website was able to load. When I entered my ID, my hands trembled with excitement, and I even entered it wrong once. My adoptive mother's forehead was covered in sweat, and she said anxiously, "Why are you messing up at a critical time? Let me do it." Fortunately, I corrected it quickly, and the page loaded. My score appeared. My adoptive mother and I held hands tightly, speechless for a moment. Just then, my phone rang. When I answered, I heard my adoptive father saying, "Classmates, my daughter's exam results came out today. I must take a minute to check with her." He rushed out of the classroom, eager to ask, "Jade, how did you do? Did you check your score yet? You should have sent me a message as soon as you got it." "I can't focus on my class. I should have skipped it." Jade graduated from high school. Maybe I should quit being a teacher. My adoptive mother's eyes filled with tears, but she forced them back, smiling and saying, "Brandon, you better not quit. I was just joking. Hurry up and tell me the results." My adoptive mother smiled through her tears, glancing at me, and said, "You did well. You should be able to get into a good university." My adoptive father shouted from the other side, "Great." I knew she would make it. My adoptive mother stared at her phone for a few seconds, then smiled. "Your dad is so happy he even forgot to hang up the phone. He's like a child who'll never grow up." Jeremy came back from his distant university. He brought me some local snacks, still warm when I received them. I scolded him, "You're in the middle of exams. You shouldn't have rushed back." He rolled his eyes at me. "Stop thinking too highly of yourself. I just missed Mom and Dad." But that evening, when we went out to celebrate, after drinking a little too much, he patted me on the shoulder and slurred, "Jade, no matter how far apart we are in the future, you can always share every happiness with me. You'll always be my most beloved sister." I gently embraced him and replied, "Yeah, you're also my best brother. He's a gift from heaven to me." My adoptive mother watched us with tears in her eyes. "This is how siblings should be. You two better stop fighting so much." In the garden outside the restaurant, there was a plum tree. It was full of green fruit turning red. Once, I was like that plum tree in the village, exposed to the wind and sun, with no one to care for me. Even though I bore fruit, it was bitter and sour, and even the insects didn't like it. It was my adoptive father who took me out of the deep mountains and grafted me onto this great tree stump. It was my adoptive mother who spared no money and effort to take care of me. The bitter fruit finally bore sweet results. On the way home, my adoptive mother bought a box of expensive plums at a store downstairs. I saw you looking at the plum tree in the yard earlier. Were you craving some? They're a bit expensive now, but we can buy them all the time when they're in season in half a month. The plums were very sour, sour enough to bring tears to my eyes. I threw myself into her arms, crying uncontrollably. Mom, I love you, and thank you. Thank you for choosing to keep me back then. Thank you for always taking care of me. Thank you for not believing those people who said my genes were bad. Thank you, you gave up your life to make mine. Mom, I've grown up, I'm about to turn 18. From now on, live for yourself, live for yourselves. You and Dad, after hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. If you liked our video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share our channel. See you next time.